And I think for me, the biggest things that I've seen here is really a focus on compliance. We've seen a lot of talks around youth access, around making sure that your products are fit for sale in the market. But I think it's really important that we point out the fact that, vaping is very new here in the UAE, and I think it's a huge step for the local government here to really set the tone for the region, right? So what is your impressions of the last 3 days here, Mohammed?
First, I think the World Vape Show gave a big platform for everyone to speak, rather than being only a trade show where you can meet partners and retailers and so on. We've met industry players, we've met experts, we've met panelists who have an idea about how the industry should perform in that category. I have to applaud the efforts of the UAE government by being the first country to regulate the ENDS category. So the regulation came out, the fiscal structure came out before anybody else, and they understood the importance of regulating such products. I think the Vape Show this year was different than the last years. First, it's bigger, and second, it brought in the industry players together. We had sessions across the 3 days, making sure that all industry players, maybe it's the first time that you see Philip Morris International, British American Tobacco, Relax, ANDS as a new player coming in the first time and discussing science, regulatory part, conformity of products, illicit trade, youth prevention. I think this is the important thing, and I urge even the organizers of the World Vape Show to take that to the next level, where you introduce more scientific engagement, more talks, bring in more experts to talk about these challenges and matters, because I think this is what the industry is missing out, especially on the side of peer-reviewed science, media, information, the right information in the right place.
Absolutely, and I think we've seen a big progression from where we were when we were here last year, right? And I do agree, I think that the fact that the show has almost doubled in size is a great testament to the work that the World Vape Show is doing, but I think they're also listening to the industry. They're listening to what we need, and I think that the discussions that we've had over the last 3 days really have elevated this into being more of a professional show, right, than a consumer show. And unfortunately, when I go to shows all around the world, I see it kind of going a little bit the other way, And I think especially when you're trying to deal with regulators, you're trying to deal with health departments like you and I do every day, they don't, they like to see a professionalism, right? They like to see that brands are marketing their products in a responsible way, that they're perhaps not using flavor names that appeal too much to the youth, right? Now, we've heard a little bit about your Sentinel program, right, that you brought out. Maybe you'd like to explain a little bit on why that's really important to ANDS.
Yes. Actually, the idea of the Sentinel program came out after the huge success of one of our brands in one of the countries. I'm not going to use that to talk about the commercial success, but when the commercial success sets in, we realize that it is becoming a trend where some of the brands that we market are used by minors. For that, we came up with an idea that we need to involve first our partners, retail and key trade partners, to make sure that they consent to not selling these products to underage people, and to do an extra age verification when in doubt about this. We worked with our manufacturers to make sure that we reject any non-compliant packaging and any packaging that might be appealing to minors. Flavors as well, even in countries where all flavors are allowed, we reject flavors that resembles candy, dessert. You will not ever find us marketing a product with cheesecake or bubble gum or gummy bear or anything like that, because we know that it should be protecting minors from getting the appeal of using that product. Internally, we make sure that we censor all of our social media channels to make sure that we do not cross the red line. Not that, but we get back 2 steps back. We make sure that influencers, reviewers that review the products does not even look younger than 25 years old. While the age of using these products is 18, we go up more and beyond to make sure that this is not a lifestyle product. this product is intended for addressing adult smokers to convince them to quit smoking cigarettes. But I don't want any non-smoker, ex-smoker, or a child even trying that product because it contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive matter, and we don't want you to become near it. Even where countries allows e-commerce and online sales, we try to add the age verification step, and maybe there are random steps for people who use our website that I might request some maybe more IDs just to make sure that anybody who's making orders on our e-commerce are verified for their age. There is a lot of steps. We are going to publish more and more of the pillars of the program on our social media website. But the important thing that we are shouting out for everyone to bring in their expertise to be part of that. Industry players, regulators, media, civil society, come in and let's talk. Let's talk about how can we prevent youth from using these products. And this is an effort that has to be done by all parties.
Absolutely, and you know, I obviously represent an organization that is a little bit more advanced maybe than we are in here in the UAE, but I think you're right. It's about bringing all of those stakeholders together, whether they be tobacco companies or whether they be independents. And I think you're also right in the fact that you know, one single product isn't right for everybody. So you have to have a suite of products, whether it's nicotine gum or pouches or heat not burn or vaping, because it's all about giving adult smokers that choice, right? So I think, you know, I've had a lot of discussions with brands like yours around the room in the last couple of days, and there seems to be an appetite for something kind of similar to what we do in the UK, where we bring all of the industry together, where we engage directly with, in my case, the MHRA and local politicians. Do you think maybe it's time for the UAE to start looking at something like that?
I think the region is missing out on the coordinated efforts in bringing all the players, whether industry or regulators or even media, within the same place. But I do believe that it is about time today that we bring in a kind of an umbrella for all industry players that can engage with the government openly and transparently, that can engage with the media, and that can focus on providing the right information for users and for regulators. So I do think that this is a great idea that we can think about. It's not only in the UAE, but because of the progression thinking of the UAE government, the way that UAE is positioned among the Arab world as progressive, open-minded, maybe it's the right place to start thinking about establishing such an association, such a group, industry group, to make sure that the industry interests are represented, but to make sure and put everybody at ease, represented transparently, openly, nothing that should violate the competition law, nothing that should violate tobacco control laws or public health laws. On the contrary, we are doing this to make sure that we protect government, minors, adult smokers from illicit trade, we protect minors, and the misuse and wrongful practices. So this should be an open platform for the industry where we communicate evenly with everyone. But instead of talking to 100 companies, you talk to representatives, they represent the idea and they do the benchmark, and this will allow more space for the science, more space to the research, medical research, to make sure that we achieve the needed input from harm reduction techniques.
Absolutely. I think for me it's almost like when you look at the COP, you know, for climate control, right? They brought all of the stakeholders around in the same room and said, you know, this is our problem, right? How do we solve this problem? And I think all of the industry has a role to play in that. And I think it's also important that I think it helps the UAE to maybe take that scientific approach, right? And look at what's worked well in some jurisdictions and take that and learn from it. But also, you know, pushing aside maybe those parts that don't work so well.
True. Maybe you brought COP. COP has a real sensitive word to the tobacco industry because of the discussions that happens in the closed manner, which is, I don't think that it's the right approach. I do understand the health concerns, but at the same time, I do believe that you need to bring the right partners legal players, and you need to openly discuss what works and what doesn't work. You can take UK for an example. They have the plan to reduce smoking incidents to 5% in 2030. But what are they doing to achieve that vision? So I think that the UAE is the best place to start a vision of harm reduction, cigarette-free, but at the same time, scientific-driven, scientific backed-up research, and maybe moving on to address the proportionate harm reduction between products. Maybe change fiscal affairs, think about regulatory manner, and maybe address more on the science to bring in a better product, but to also to allow companies to work with scientific institutions to bring in more quality products, more compliant products, and at the same time, curbing down the illicit trade. Because if you have illicit trade products, then you have youth use more and more, because whenever you're working with illicit products, you might sell to minors, you might sell to ex-smokers, because illegal is illegal, whether you're selling to illegal age or you're selling an illegal product. So you have to make sure that you achieve and strike that balance.
Well, absolutely, and that's the kind of the environment that I work in, so I know it works, right? You know, we deal very closely with the MHRA in the UK. You know, we do have members from all types of the business, right? So everything from tobacco companies, we have jewelers members, and we've got many, many independent players as well. And it can be challenging. It can be challenging managing all of those different agendas and the egos and all of that. But I think what works well is that the government understands that, at least in the UK, that smoking is the problem. It's not the consumption of nicotine. So if they are to really push forward, in our case, it's that smoke-free agenda by 2030, they know in the UK they've got to increase vaping by 40%. So even in the last few weeks, we've seen independent reports coming out that are advising our government that's been pro-vaping. We're talking about our health minister bringing out what he calls a white paper with a smoking revolution. You know, so I think for me, it's a great opportunity for the UAE to show its leadership in this area by maybe talking to these people and maybe looking at what works really well. And I think one thing that concerns me with what's developing here in the UAE is it's almost like a push towards illicit trade a little bit, right?
Yep.
I understand there's been some fines recently with some retailers. Can you kind of enlighten us a little bit about that?
I think we have to recognize that illicit trade is an issue on all levels, whether it's cosmetics, car tires, or cigarettes, or vaping products. But I think that we've seen very important steps by the UAE government, and you can see and track on the newspapers, and if you are close to the government officials, you will see that they are serious about this.
Okay.
It's not only about government revenues, it's about non-compliant products, it's about where these revenues are going, because if you're dealing with illicit trade, we don't know where the money is going. If you're dealing with illicit trade, then this means that this product has not been tested, verified, or accredited by any lab. Yeah. And when you have an entity like ESMA or MOIT, the ministry that's supervising ESMA, putting one of the best regulatory frameworks in the region, then I think that they know what they're doing. So there is a crackdown on illicit trade, and we appraise that, and I think that there are more and more promising steps coming forward. But at the same time, I want to take another example on illicit trade, which is my hometown, Jordan. I'm coming from Jordan, and to show you how fiscal structure can affect the illicit trade incidences. So if you have the proper fiscal structure, you will find that illicit trade is going down because these illegal products are being replaced by legal products. These non-compliant products are getting replaced by compliant and tested products. Government revenue is rising, industries, foreign investment is coming in, and you can make sure that there is accountability and responsibility. And that's why we always advise the Jordanian government, I can say that because I'm coming from there, and we always discuss openly on how this can be done to make sure that you curb illicit trade, monitor the industry well, and hold companies accountable for their products. At the same time, youth prevention can be monitored because I can trace back products other than a legal product coming from anywhere. So there's no ideal situation. Fiscal structure, regulatory framework, youth prevention, illicit trade, covered by umbrella of communication, media, regulators, law enforcement. This is how the ideal scenario looks like.
So it's almost like you need to build a framework that not necessarily is simple to adhere to,
True.
but that is commercially viable, right?
True.
So you need to take a look at that, so to make sure that all of the products that's being sold in the UAE and the regions are compliant, they're tested, so that consumers can have confidence in switching, but also I think that the medical community understand that these products are as safe as they can be, right?
Yeah.
And I think as the business grows, then the UAE will see revenue grow, right? They will see a fiscal benefit from it, not only from increased sales, but also I think from reduced healthcare costs, perhaps. What do you think?
To be honest, I'm not the expert on the health side, but I have twofold theory to say. First is harm reduction. Harm reduction means that you have to have an accepted product that is widely accepted at the same time with the potential to reduce risk. Are these products 100% safe? No. Are these products 100% zero risk? No. If you don't smoke, if you don't vape, don't start. Even we were joking around that, have you ever seen a salesman that's selling cars telling consumers not to buy his cars? We are telling people not to buy our products. Unless you are a smoker who is willing to quit smoking but cannot, you can switch to vaping products. Otherwise, just cold turkey. I used to be a smoker, and I moved into using heated tobacco product, and then I used for some time a vaping device, and then now I just quit. I don't use any. This is what we're telling people. The smoking incidences in the Arab world is scary. Example, Jordan. It's around 70% of the population is the smoking incident. So what can you do? Either you keep on telling people, smokers who have been addicted to smoking conventional cigarettes, that they have to quit, or you provide a better alternative that is accepted and then take them through the journey. You have to see vaping devices as a cessation tool. You have to have these cessation clinics. But in the cessation clinics, you cannot judge a smoker because this is an addiction manner. You have to talk to him and you have to address his needs and you have to address that he needs his nicotine. I give it to him and gradually I take him out of this bad habit. I leave the health to the health experts, but I talk purely from an industry that has is alternative nicotine delivery solutions. We established the company with a mission, with a vision to switch people from smoking conventional cigarettes to using these devices as a pathway to quit all of these products altogether.
Absolutely. Now, we do have about 10 minutes left, so if there is any questions from the audience, please raise your hand and we'll try and get a microphone to you. But I think, you and I are going to sit here again in 12 months' time, right? And hopefully it's going to be a little cooler by then. What advice do you think, we give to the show organizers, right? But what do you want to see, the top 3 things you want to see for the industry between now and when you and I sit down and have this talk in 12 months' time?
Okay, first, maybe more AC.
That would be
that would be one. I think that we have to have more focus on the conference itself. The conference needs to move to become the World Vape Show and conference. The conference needs to be designated. I would like to see more industry players sitting on this stage because we've been there last year and this year it has been different. I would like to see more scientific research. We have scientific entities here today. Next time, I would like to see them on stage, discussing how they can add value, how they can advise the industry. I would like to see more innovation hubs. We've seen one of the brands here, I don't want to commercialize, one of the professors was talking about the new technology in vaping that reduces heating in the devices. And this is very interesting because innovation is the key to switching people. I would like to see more people presenting how these devices, testimonials of people of how these devices helped real smokers quit smoking and quit nicotine products. I don't want to see somebody coming in and say, this is the device that I'm using today and I'm still using. I want them to come in and say, I used to be a smoker and now I quit because of a vaping device, because of heated tobacco product, because of oral nicotine. And I would like to see the industry gathering in as a total category solution. Heated tobacco products, vaping category, and oral nicotine. Pouches, gums, and maybe next year would be more and more innovative product that is talking to smokers. I think what is missing here, not within the show, but what is missing within the category is what does the smoker need? By 2025, we'll have a 1 billion plus smoker, and what are we doing to get these people off smoking conventional cigarettes?
Absolutely, and I think I agree with pretty much most of what you said.
Yep.
I think for me, you know, this show compared to last year is night and day, in my opinion. So I agree. I think these talks are great. What I want to see next year maybe is more media here,
yes,
a little bit of that. I'd like to see maybe more engagement with the government. So one of the things that I'm going to do in the next 12 months is talk to our health departments and our ministers and see if we can maybe perhaps bring them over and share their experiences. And perhaps maybe we can work on the government here a little bit.
Yeah,
see if we can get them together and talk.
Yeah.
You know, I think that would be a good idea. But I agree. I think, you know, what we're lacking in the shows now is this total innovation, right? It's what's the next big thing, right? So I think what I'll be talking to the manufacturers about in China and around the world is come and showcase your technology. Come and showcase your vision for the future. Not now, but where do you see it is next 12 months? So I think for me, that's going to be the biggest challenge on my end. For
and good luck, and we're supportive for you. Your organization have been helping us a lot as a neutral partner, although an umbrella that is covering the vaping industry, but as well a consultant to tell us exactly what can we do to avoid the mistakes. I'm sure you've been through a lot of mistakes, but now we're trying to do it the right way. And the regulation has been there for almost 2-3 years. And when you look at the UK, the progression that they're doing, I think there is a lot to learn from organization, from the industry, and even from governments. And it's always we don't want it to be a trial and error. We want to take the experience, take the mistakes, and rectify it when we are trying to build a better future that is not using any nicotine product.
Absolutely, I think the UAE is in a great position for that, right?
Yes.
We had to start from scratch. We had to make those mistakes.
Yeah.
They have the foresight to look back at all of the markets around the world and take the best from everywhere, right?
True, I do
So I think that's my challenge for the UAE for the next 12 months.
Let's do it together.
Is how can we push that
We
forward,
wish you the
right?
best of luck, and we're all supportive to that effort.
Absolutely. Well, we just have a couple of minutes left. Does anybody in the audience have any questions for us? It's very quiet.
I think everybody has been drained for the past 3 days.
I think they have. They've been questioned now.
I hope that they don't have questions because we already answered all of the questions.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Well, with that, I would like to say thank you, Mohammed,
so
for
much.
sitting down.
Has been
I'm
amazing.
looking forward to sitting down with you in 12 months' time.
Yeah.
And we'll be going, remember those ideas we had? They came to
They are
fruition,
here.
right?
Yeah, I hope so.
All right, my friend. Thank you very
so
much.
much.
And we'll
Thank
see
you.
you in 12
Thank you.
months.
Thank you so much.
everybody.